Okay, welcome to the NDIS podcast with Chris Hall. And today I've got Michael Clark from Athletic Koala on with me. And Michael is a fellow marketeer. So today we're going to just chew the fat on the fundamentals and also talk about some digital marketing strategies and trying to kind of, navigate between the ones that work and the ones that have less return or don't work, etc. So let's try and cut through all the chaff today and have a good yarn with the fellow marketeer. So Michael, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, it's great to be here. And also, Chris, I think today is going to be ideal for the people who hate marketing. Because if we're
Yes.
honest, how many people in NDIS world actually enjoy marketing? Not many. And so, Chris, let's chat and let's give our promise that we'll make sure that even if you don't know what Chris is talking about when he says marketing, you're
Hmm.
still going to get something out of this.
Well, exactly. So, I mean, suppose before we even go into any of the particular tools, right? So you've got everything from building websites, search engine optimization, paid advertising. There's this whole world of, so we say the tactics, right? But there's a fundamental, more underlying strategy to marketing. And in my view and my experience, I feel like when you're in the NDIS, especially when you're a startup or a growing business, I feel like you need to understand the fundamentals of your value proposition. And so the way I always teach that is that how are you unique in terms of being quantifiably different? What do you actually, how are you relevant to your audience? And what kind of quantified value can you add in terms of metrics like hey, we can start services in 5 days, or we can respond to your query within 24 hours, all these kind of measurable things. So I feel like your value prop is foundational, and I also feel like the foundational other piece is your ideal customer, because sometimes I think all providers, we've all been there, we can be guilty of go, oh, I'll set up an NDIS business, and then you go, oh, what now? Because it goes way beyond just the initial logo and the business name. So Michael, I'd love to kind of hear it from your point of view. What are the foundational cornerstones of when you set up a business for the first time in the NDIS? What do you actually need to delineate before you even pick from your tool set?
Yeah, Chris, what you're saying is really valid because I know so many people who've started an NDIS business in the last 6 months and they've hit the wall. They are stuck and they've got like their first five participants and they're stuck, or their first 15 and they're stuck because they thought that they were stepping into the same NDIS environment we had a year ago or 2 years ago, back when you could pretty much do whatever you like. You could sing about Mickey Mouse and you'd still get participants. You just had to say, I've got capacity. So those same people who registered back then are now in the spot of like, oh, I actually have to do marketing. And that's hard. So what you're saying is know who you're serving. And the fancy way of saying that would be to say, know what your niche is. But I think the days of knowing what your niche is are pretty much over. Now you need to have a niche of a niche.
Okay.
So if you've got, say, a SIL business, support independent living, I know someone who's got support independent living and they're doing mental health.
Mm.
Within that, they're really focused on the mental health. And that was great in 2023 because that was a niche. But in 2025, I think you're going to need to have a niche within a niche. So if you're going to say we're doing SIL for mental health, then you want to be even more specific. We're doing SIL for mental health of people with an acquired injury, or we're
Mm.
doing SIL for mental health of people who have had a tough couple of years and they're bouncing back. Because if you can be super niche, like absolutely super specific, then it means as soon as you find someone who matches what you do,
Mm.
they will not look at five other providers. They'll only look at you. And I guess, Chris, why that's important is because go back 2 years ago, people wouldn't have looked at five other providers because there weren't five other providers in the area. But now there's 50.
Mm.
So you have to be so deliberate about who you're going to serve.
That's really interesting. Okay, and I do agree very much so with that. So, say for example, Achieve Australia in Sydney, they're massive, right? And they're huge. And if you ask them what's their speciality, it would be complex physical health. So they've got a nice, clear answer for that. They've also got more than 70 years of service delivery, so they're sitting on that stronghold, right? Which is amazing. Um, just to add to your point, like the niche within a niche, I feel like you can also do that by picking the types of disability that you work with. And there's
Yep.
two different lenses. There's a, what are you actually good at? So for, let's say in your founding team, you might have yourself and you're also a registered nurse, right? So then if you're the founding team that's also RN capable, then logically you're probably good at module one and complex care. Maybe you're really good at stoma care and bowel movements, dysphagia, the whole range of complex physical stuff. So that's an example, right? Another example could be when I set up my business Steadway on the Central Coast, we went through a period of being unregistered for 10 months, and we just got a registration last month, which is like amazing. But in the meantime, we were like, right, well, we're going to say for good reasons that we specialize in 5 particular disabilities. And so that's the way we spelt out that niche. Let me add an extra dimension just for fun, because this is from my
Go
own
for it.
lived experience, right? Because I'm a geek and because I'm a technologist, I'm so passionate about the rostering software that I use, for example, and which is Zango. And the reason I say that is that what I realize is that the technology that I'm using, as well as the disabilities that I specialize in, it's so bloody good that I can sing that from the
Yep.
rooftops and talk about that in my sales and marketing process, right? So, i.e., genuine stuff like, hey, we geo track all of our support workers so that we can validate that they've safely arrived at your location and on time. In addition to that, we don't do pieces of paper. We do everything as digital shift forms. And this means that we can collaborate with your GP, collaborate with your occupational therapist. See what I mean? Like those are examples of speaking from the heart, but also showing that you're bloody good at what you do. So I've kind of
Yeah.
realized in the last 10 months, take everything you just said, and I'm adding on the layer of show that you're bloody good in terms of your tech and your operations. And then the participants directly, their nominees, and also the support coordinators are going to go, these guys are genuine. These guys are good operators.
That's quality, Chris. And there's a couple of other things in what you're saying that say someone who's just in their first, say, year of
Mm-hmm.
operation, like say yourself with that particular business, could really take on board. So the first thing that you said is that the big players, they it's like they have multiple niches, or like you, if you've been going 10 months, you end up with multiple niches. But when you're first starting, you need to be micro niche. So I know someone say, oh, they're amazing. It's my word in Albury. They're just amazing speech therapists, but now they also do occupational therapy. So if you go back 2 years ago, they were ultra niched into, well, they were a bit niched into speech therapy, but now they're also niched into occupational therapy, but they'll only take particular clients for speech therapy and particular clients for occupational therapy. So they're still niched. It's just they have multiple niches. When you're first starting, you don't have that luxury. Okay, that's why people like you and I would say to people who are just starting, pick one niche, aim for one type of customer. But down the track, then you're still niched, but you have more than one niche. And then the second thing you're saying that's so valuable is you're talking about demonstrating why people would want to choose you.
Yes.
Okay. So it's like say on someone's website or in their marketing materials or when they're talking to support coordinators, that they want to be saying, hey, here's what we deliver and here's how it actually helps you. And a lot of people are using 2021 tactics of going, hey, look at me, I exist, choose me. Here's 5 reasons to choose me, which is the dumbest thing you could ever say. And ChatGPT can produce that for you, or someone who speaks English as a second language can produce that for you. Someone who hasn't even lived in the NDIS world can produce that for you. But instead, what we should be doing in all of our marketing materials is like you're saying, going, here's what we do that actually makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're saying is you will get to where you need to be safely and on time, and we will geo track to make sure of it.
Yep.
And you should be requiring that of whichever provider you choose, whether they choose Chris Hall's business or someone else's business. And so once you start giving away, hey, here's the pitfalls, and here's ways to overcome that, and
Mm-hmm.
here's what we've done. We've used such and such software. What's the name of your software, Chris?
It's Ango. Yep.
Okay. You say we use the Zango software to make sure of that.
Mm.
And then once you start giving away that free advice, you're then seen as a subject matter expert
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have to persuade people to choose you. They want you.
Yep.
But I think a lot of our newbie providers, they're not giving free value. They're not giving tips. They're just saying, choose me. And I think that's a trap.
It is. And again, like you and I can comfortably use the term sales and marketing because we're here as a B2B style podcast speaking to business owners and managers. One little nuance is that, I probably would steer away from calling your sales team the sales team, is your intake team or
That'd be
whatever.
a good idea. They're the support team. Yeah.
The support team, because it's a human, again, genuinely, we're working in an ethical industry talking about people's lives, right? Nevertheless, you need to have a commercial mindset, in my opinion, where you can do everything you just said as well. Like, this is why we're making an impact. I think that, yeah, what else in this really? Yeah, it doesn't matter the industry you're in, sales and marketing as well, is fundamentally about spelling out the pain points and also the solutions. And the way I like to describe it is there's a chasm in between, and and you want to create pressure between this is the shit that goes down that's a problem, and this is how we're different. Because the more people can feel that chasm and the fact that it's an easy leap to come over to you because bang bang bang, this is what you do, then yeah, indeed, you're then the subject matter expert. You are the genuine. It's not even, you shouldn't even try to fake it. It's about being really genuine that problems exist like this. We many providers. You don't even have to badmouth others. You don't. I wouldn't ever suggest picking out names of the competition that either do or don't do things. What you do is you spell out the importance of certain things, such as even compliance checks. I know this is getting really granular, but if you do it, like here's an example pitch. Hey, we find that unfortunately not all providers are even validating CPR and first aid certificates, never mind medication training, etc. Our system ensures that someone actually cannot be rostered on the shift without that being uploaded and current. And they're going really granular, but a support coordinator would appreciate that because they'll go, oh,
That's so true.
nice to
Yep. And
know.
if you want to start to really rank on Google for
Okay.
whatever your niche is,
Yes.
you need to take that even one step further. Because what you'll like, most people don't even do that, and that's
Mm-hmm.
why they fail. If they do what you're describing, they will stand out to support coordinators, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we need to be prepared for a post coordinator NDIS environment
Good point.
because, yep, NDIS has said somewhere between, if you look at the timeframes they gave, somewhere between 6 and 12, worst case, 18 months from now, best case, I should say, support coordinators are either gone or they've morphed into navigators or who knows what. So what's happening is people are building for, oh, I want the support coordinators to know how good we are. What happens when they disappear?
Mm.
Now, 50-50, they won't disappear, but 50-50, they will disappear. And if, like I was talking today to someone who said to me, oh, all my leads are through support coordinators. I don't need to do any website work. I'm like, sure. What's your plan a year when it's 50-50 that they're gone? And I guess, Chris, if someone came and said to you, your whole business model, let's say your house, let's say there's a 50-50 chance in the next year, a bushfire is going to wipe out your house.
Mm.
Would you just ignore that and be like optimistic that magically the government will keep being generous and I don't have to worry?
Mm.
Or would you actually move, insure your house? What would you do if it was a 50-50 chance?
Well, I either move or at least ensure it and build up a good firewall. Literally, I get your point. It's a very interesting distinction. It's probably a good segue a little bit into search engine stuff and paid advertising, right? So the way I like to think about it is that, again, as a business owner, it's really easy just to think that you can throw money at stuff and that'll fix it. I think that's a really common mistake. So, oh, we'll just do some Facebook advertising, or oh, we'll just do some Google ads. It's not enough just to do that. You really need to be super granular and clear on the terms, for example, that you're trying to target. Because take your example of support coordinators. If they go, whilst they may go, one I think bet that you could hedge on is the fact that terminology, probably at least 80% of it in terms of search terms, would probably stay very similar, if not the same. And because it doesn't
So
matter
true.
if they're a navigator or a cause or whatever, or mum and dad or the participant, they're going to be searching for certain stuff. So yeah, I guess talk me through that a little bit in terms of search engine optimization and that level of things, like matching
Yeah.
your service with your keywords and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So to understand that, Chris, I guess again, thinking through the mindset of someone who's been in the industry only 18 months.
Yep.
Okay. They're like, well, what are Michael and Chris even talking about? It's like what you need to do. So if there's only one thing you do in the next month, it would be
Mm.
set a goal that your website does everything Chris is saying, which is that it makes very clear who we're here to serve and makes very clear how we serve them better than most. And then I would suggest another layer on that, which is give specific advice about how to find exactly what you need, whether they choose you or not. Okay. So
Mm.
when you've got all that, you have a website that will stand out. And when people go there, they trust you.
Mm.
And they trust you because not just because you have a flashy website, they trust you because you're good at your stuff and you're generous with your information.
Yep.
Okay. And then the next layer above that is like, what is the use of having the Mona Lisa painting in your house if no one knows it's there and no one appreciates it?
Yep.
And when people talk about search engine optimization, they talk about taking your website, making sure that you're using the words that people type into Google when they're searching for something like you.
Yes.
For example, if you're doing, say, SIL, you say you're doing SIL in Ulladulla, you'd make sure that your homepage has, hey, we do SIL in Ulladulla. And there's magic you do in the background so that Google knows exactly what you do. So when someone is searching for SIL in Ulladulla, support independent living, they'll find you. And and so the thing that happens here is people end up, I would estimate that 80% of the marketing money that NDIS businesses are spending is wasted and
Mm-hmm.
scammed off them.
I agree with that. I agree with that. It has to be
Why do you agree with
so.
that?
has to be so targeted and well considered, right? Because I think what happens is that um, look, we can sometimes in a marketing department internally, we can have the hats of public relations as well as marketing. And sometimes from a PR perspective, especially in large organizations, it can be, oh, that's quote unquote good brand awareness, or that's a nice message to send to the market. And sure, if you're a bigger organization, you can literally afford to do that. But if it's actually solving the problems of the people that are the new inquirers to your business, then I think you can much more tightly align your marketing budget to actually acquisition, i.e., new referrals, new inquiries, right? So I think in the medium to large ones, the getting the message out there for the sake of it is where a lot of the wastage happens. It's not the only place, but my slightly harsher budget opinion is don't waste your money on that. Spend it on stuff that gives you lead gen.
Totally. Like Chris, you and I and the people listening, we are not McDonald's. We can't just throw money at kids' sports and, that's not going to win the game. Okay. Brand awareness does not pay your employees wages. Okay. Brand awareness is, it's like this mythical thing people who don't know what they're doing are chasing. Instead of brand awareness, how about real results? So
Yes,
I know that, yeah, when I put, if I'm working for someone and I say take 5 grand of their money and put in, say, Google ads or Facebook ads,
yep,
I expect to get 5 times that much back in revenue.
yep.
And if I don't, then I feel like I've failed, which is why I'm choosy as heck about who I'll work for because I'm not going to waste someone's money.
Mm.
And the days of being able to effortlessly market, you mentioned Google and Facebook. On Google and Facebook, if you go back 3 years, pretty much any aspect of NDIS, you could go and put money into Google ads or Facebook ads and it will pay for itself.
Mm-hmm.
We are in 2024, 2025. I am struggling to get a return on money that I invest for people in Google and Facebook ads, and it's embarrassing. And I have to
I
just keep
agree
saying
with
to
that.
people,
By the
stop.
way, I've had a similar experience, and so therefore
It's
I'm way
horrible.
more way more cautious. I don't know what the hell's going on. I don't know whether Google's just being a greedy naughty boy. I'm going to make him a little naughty boy right now. But he's like
Yeah.
stealing all the bloody money. And even when you put in all the fancy stuff, like you can, to simplify for the people listening, you can track when someone makes a genuine inquiry or not. Like if you've got a CRM like HubSpot, right? That's what I use and what I implement for people and all that jazz. You can actually connect it with Google Ads and you can go, hey, if this form is submitted, then send a little message back to Google Ads to say conversion, right? Which is all very well and good. But even then, like the quality of the leads are shocking in my experience when it comes to paid Google advertising.
That's right. So there's a mathematical reason for what you're describing.
Tell
It's
me,
if you,
I'm interested. I'm
well,
really fascinated by the hell. The hell,
I've talked, yeah, I've talked
yeah.
to probably 15 people about this. I've spent
Yeah.
12 months trying to work it out because, like you, I thought, am I broken? Have I lost my touch?
Mm,
I used to be able to weave magic with Google Ads. And what it comes down to is, well, one, Google is charging more per ad just to make a profit. That's part of it. Two, the mathematics is that Google Ads and Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads, they're an auction. So if you've got more NDIS businesses competing for someone's attention, Google's like, sure, you can all compete, but I'm going to charge you all more. So you end up paying more just because there's more of them. But then the other thing, that mathematical reason why is because if you go back 12 months ago, say if someone was looking for supported, what's the SDA, disability accommodation,
specialist
then
disability accommodation. Yeah, yeah.
thank you. Awesome. If they were looking for specialist disability accommodation,
Mm,
there might have been that many providers, say, 100 providers in your area. But right now, there's probably 200 providers.
mm-hmm,
So, and there might have also been, say, I don't know, 1,000 people looking. Well, right now, people's NDIS budgets have been slashed. And it's so much harder to get your NDIS even started. So you've got less people searching, more businesses trying to put themselves up on the advertising world. And then you've got the advertising companies wanting to charge more. So what I used to be able to get for, $1.50 a click, $3 a click, is now costing $10 a click. It's not worth it.
mm, mm,
And so it's maths, but instead of where people get stuck, Chris, is they go, oh, everyone's being greedy, it's bad. But instead of blaming, let's just accept it. Okay, that's how it is. What do we do differently? Well,
mm,
that's where we go and have a website filled with amazing content that answers people's unasked questions.
mm-hmm.
And then we should still try Facebook ads and Google ads because if they do pay for themselves 5 times over, they're worth it. But if they don't, we need to know that in 2025, that's not really something we can rely on anymore.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Yes, so be very careful on that, and that's kind of harking back to my point earlier on. especially in the startup days, it's really tempting just to go or throw some money at it, i.e., ads, right? And the other problem for people to be aware of with Facebook in particular is that the targeting is really restricted, right? So you can't, for good reasons, you can't say, hey, I want to target people that are autistic or have Down syndrome or anything like that. You can't target by disability or if someone's got one or whatever. And so it's only the kind of the much higher level stuff of demographic stuff like your gender and age and geography, pretty much. And the other interests aren't as relevant. Would you agree with that? Like, tell me what you think.
Well, what you're saying is a fact. About
Right.
2022, Facebook cut out being able to target, say, parents of, say, children with autism on
Mm.
Facebook, which you could target. You could, when we say target, we're saying you paid a bit extra to put your ad in front of only people who are members of an autism group.
Yep.
Okay. And Facebook changed their policies on that. And it's probably a good thing for the world because the last thing we need is
Yes.
robots telling us how to think. Nevertheless, it means that what was super easy to do is now super complex. And
Mm.
this is where people get stuck. Like you're saying, they throw money at a problem. It's like, hold on, don't just pay someone who tells you they can do Facebook ads.
Mm.
Have they worked in NDIS before? Because I know that, say, myself or you, I'll bet you've spent more than this. Like I've invested for other people about $500,000
Mm.
in Facebook ads and Google ads.
Mm.
After a while, you work out what works and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Have they done that? If
Mm.
they claim they've done that, have they done it for your industry?
Mm.
Okay. And if they've
Mm.
done it for your industry, were they successful?
Mm.
Okay.
Mm.
And I'm not saying you need someone at that level. I don't even do my own Facebook ads and Google ads anymore because it's got so hard that I give my clients' work to someone else.
Mm.
Okay, because it's that hard and I'm committed to making sure people get what they need. But what I am saying is the person who's running your ads, do they know what they're doing? And I
Mm.
think, Chris, a lot of people right now are probably confused between what you and I are saying of running ads versus organic social media posts. We're not talking about putting something up on Facebook. We're talking about paying, per click for
Mm.
specific ads. But
Mm.
at the end of the day, what you said before is you need to meet someone, you need to find someone's problem and solve it. If you're
Correct.
going to throw money into Facebook ads or Google ads,
Mm.
don't just be like, here, click on our website. Oh, yeah, you're on our website. Give them something of value. Like I remember an organization I worked for, they were giving away a 20-page little mini booklet of specific things that would help someone who was raising an autistic child.
Mm.
Now, people will happily click on that and download that and give you their email address.
Yep.
What they won't do is click on something that leads to your website to hear 5 reasons to choose you.
Correct.
What are
No,
your thoughts,
exactly.
Chris?
I totally agree. You're taking the words out of my mouth. I love it in a good way. Like, yeah, I'll put it even cruder. People don't give a shit about you. They give a shit about what you can do for them, right? How can
That's
you
right.
solve their problem, right? So, for example, to another example of that would be we did. I do this for some of my clients sometimes as well. I've written an NDIS application guide, and the whole point is it's
Brilliant.
the insider scoop, 16-page guide, lovely PDF. It's the classic downloadable e-asset. And then with your CRM, you can put the postcode in there too. So if the postcode is your geography, then in 3 months' time, logically, that person that downloaded the guide could have a plan. So that's a forward-thinking way. And then I love that parenting tip as well. That there's so many things, and that goes back to your fundamentals on your niche. What actually is your niche and what you're good at?
And it also
Align
goes
it.
back to what you said about,
Yeah.
sorry?
Align it to that
Yes,
basically. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
What you said earlier as well is find a problem, solve a problem.
Mm.
Okay. It's like you're giving them a tool to solve their problem. So that thing of the insiders document you created on how to get onto the NDIS properly,
Mm.
someone who had a bit more time than you and I could actually ultra niche that. They could take it even further.
Yep.
How to get your NDIS sorted for your child with a physical disability. How to get your
Yes.
NDIS sorted for if you're aiming at SDA, if you're aiming at SIL, if you're aiming at this, if you're aiming at that. And because there's already, now that you've said that, and I'll bet there's other people who've got that document,
Mm.
then great. But what are they going to choose? Are they going to choose the generalist document or are they going to choose the document for people who have acquired brain injury,
Yep.
if that's a specific thing? So it's also about having the time and putting in the work to be even more specific than we used to. Again, it's not 2021. We're going to 2025. It's a very different time.
It is. It is. So tell me, for search engine stuff, what, because I know it's one of the services you do. Like, tell me the type of stuff that people are getting wrong on that. What are they doing that's not getting them anywhere?
Yeah. Okay. So where I see most people getting really ripped off
Yeah.
with with this is I'm seeing big organizations. I actually saved someone $30,000 about 2 months ago because I looked at his statistics and I looked at what he was paying someone to do their search engine optimization, and I showed him factually with the figures. I showed him I did the work that every cent he'd spent had brought him zero results. I said to him, whoever's been selling you this has done nothing but sent you reports that you don't even understand. They've lied to you. And so he was able to deal with that with them. There's another client that I worked for who they'd only spent $6,000 on search engine optimization. I was able to show him that they haven't done anything. They've sat around sending you a monthly report, automated report. And he went back to them. He got their $6,000 back. And
Mhm.
then he paid me to go and actually do the work properly, which
Mm.
was win-win. But the bottom line is people are getting scammed because they're stepping into an area they don't know what they're doing. It's like if I go to the dentist and he says I need XYZ, then I just trust him. There's a difference between trusting the dentist and trusting someone who says that they're good at search engine optimization.
Mm.
And where I see people really struggling, Chris, there's on-page search optimization and there's off-page.
Yes.
On-page is what you do on your website to make your website stand out to Google, okay?
Mhm.
To make the robots appreciate you and want to show you off to the world. That is usually money well spent.
Mhm.
Any off-page SEO, in fact, if you're at your desk, write this down, off-page SEO. Any off-page SEO you are paying for more than a month is a complete waste of time. Google doesn't even take any notice of off-page SEO anymore.
So tell
So
the tell,
why are
tell
we
the
doing
audience
that?
what that actually is, right? So what is an
Okay,
example of off-page SEO?
an off-page SEO. So what's your business at the coast, at the Central Coast?
Steadway. Steadway.
Steadway. Okay, so what I can do, if I was working, say, on your site, I
Yep.
would go through and do on-page SEO really well. I'd
Mhm.
go Steadway. And what's your main service, Chris?
Well, personal care activities and community access. Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
do Steadway personal care
Yeah.
and Central Coast. I do Steadway community activities, Central Coast. I'd come up with those sort of headings. I'd do a page, a different web page within your site on each of those specific things you do.
Sure.
That's on page SEO and that gets you results. It's worth
Yep.
every cent.
Yep.
But off page SEO is where I say, Chris, I'm going to charge you thousands of dollars a month to go and put you on all these directories.
Mhm.
That's off page SEO. So putting you on the yellow page is useful. Putting you on the white page is useful. Putting you on like some Honda Civic Club
Oh, I
directory
see what
is
you
a
mean. So
waste of
no,
time.
it's a low authority referring websites. There's an
Even high
example.
authority referring websites are not
Okay.
carrying the weight they used to. So if it was
Okay.
2022, yeah, if it was 2022, I wouldn't be saying this. You would have
Mm.
laughed at me.
Mm.
But Google tells you what it's looking for, and it's not looking for that. It's looking for quality content delivered by a subject matter expert
Mhm.
around specific questions people ask. So
Mm.
give it what it wants and stop paying some random person who doesn't know what they're doing to rip you off.
Mm. That's really interesting. I let's go down that rabbit hole for just a second. So I had a conversation with um what was it, local search, the
Yep, yep,
the guy there, and the poor bugger, like, he didn't realize it. Like, I'm autistic, so I'm very granular and I can go down the rabbit hole. I'll do the Excel spreadsheet that kind of goes, look, I've proven that your page has zero traffic, or I'm that guy.
yep.
So what I did that I found interesting is I said, all right, you tell me the types of search terms that people are looking for, and I figured it out myself. And I used a tool called Uber Suggest, which is, again, a digital marketing tool. It's really cheap compared to some of the bigger ones, but it's amazing for putting in things like a particular web page, right?
Yep.
So let's say Kincumber's down the road from where I live. So let's say NDIS provider Kincumber, NDIS provider Gosford, like all the suburbs of the Central Coast, right? And they did a really good job of most of the time being page one, right? Now, whilst that was true, there's a massive assumption in there. And the assumption is that people are actually searching for that particular term. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Right. So
does.
NDIS provider suburb, right? And what I found out by putting it in that tool I just mentioned, Uber Suggest, which I got like a very cheap paid subscription for, it's amazing. I found out that basically the answer was zero, right? So therefore, I was able to go back to the bloke and go, I'm so sorry. I recognize that your technical people have managed to get the rankings up there for that, but there's no traffic. So therefore, how can I see that there's going to be a return on investment? Like, again, it's almost like our egos kick in when we go, oh, look at that. I could appear on, all of these number one rankings, but it doesn't mean anything without traffic.
It doesn't mean anything. And even more than that is I get this, I hear this a lot. And again, if you're doing any off-page SEO, just stop. That's all I would say. Just
You're
stop.
right. Okay. It's really interesting. It's refreshing. Yes. Stop wasting
Yes.
time. Yeah, okay.
I mean, people are spending 15, 20 grand a year on
Yeah.
off-page SEO, basically they're just donating to some scammer. Instead, imagine if they put that money into Google ads or Facebook ads or
Mm,
having the most amazing website ever. But
mm.
it's like I see people say, "Oh, you're ranking on number one." You're ranking on number one for your own brand name. And if you're not, we
Yes.
got a bigger problem. So
Correct.
if
Yes.
I type in Steadway
Yeah. Yeah.
into Google and your business doesn't come up first, we have a bigger problem.
Correct.
And
100%.
it's more of the
Yeah.
just the scammy marketing crap that
Yes.
steals money from people and stops them showing their ideal audience what they're about. So the
Mm,
long story short of what you and I are saying is
mm,
you need to understand what someone's doing for you if they're working for you. And at worst case scenario, get someone else who's good at their craft to go and look at their work. Because about 80% of the time when I look at someone else's work,
mm,
I have to go back to the owner and go, hey, you're being scammed. Here's where.
mm, mm, mm,
And
mm.
I feel like Robin Hood. I'm saving so many people money. And again, that's an example of you helping someone even when it's not in your interest. Now, if I do that for someone, they're going to come back to me in 6 months. I can almost guarantee it. In the same way, if we talk about what you were talking about with all our NDIS providers who are just starting up, go and help
Mm,
some people. Just
mm.
help people with no strings attached. You watch it come back to you because that's real marketing. It's letting people get solutions to their issues.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. In again, to be technical on corporate terminology, would be talking about qualified leads, and all that means, right? You want qualified leads. What that means is basically, in your NDIS terms, is it someone in your service area looking for a service that you do, um, and have they got a budget? That's it. That's a simplification, right?
That's right. And
Um,
the alternative would be, is it
yes.
someone sitting in Darwin who's typing something in for his year 10 assignment who just cost you $10 for a Google ad
Oh,
because you
the
targeted the
number
wrong
of
spot?
times, I've seen Joe Blogs plumber or whatever in Perth coming up on my search because they didn't geographically assign it. Oh my god! But yes, but to the point of qualification for a second. Um, Clearly, if you've got very specific disability NDIS search terms, that can link really well to optimization of your search traffic. Right, that's a given. I don't think we'll talk more about that. The other examples, I agree with the whole, whether it be local search, yellow pages. There's a refreshing perspective. Thank you for that. There are certain exception websites. So, for example, My Care Space. I signed up to them. I
Oh,
partnered
how
with
good
them.
is my care
They're
space? I
great. They're
mean, you're going
great.
to get leads from that. It's
It's
so good.
actual leads. It's actual leads, right? So you
Yes,
got actual support coordinators and people with disabilities looking on there, and then you get the inquiry through. That is a great example of a healthy listing website. And not all of them work. So I'm gonna do that shout out. I'm not saying it's the only one, but I'm going to give that shout out in particular because I found that a really healthy, return, and good people. So yes, qualified leads. So what else? I suppose like all right, let me go a bit more granular for a second. I did speak to a search engine optimization consultant, and he's someone I'm considering for the future for my own business. Because again, I'm willing to speak to the experts on this type of stuff. Like I can give people the overview and talk about what works and doesn't work and what to look out for, so that you're empowered. But I do think there are niches within niches. And his distinction was, if you take, for example, the suburbs of the Central Coast, right? There's about say 60 or 70 suburbs. So there are key terms like NDIS provider Central Coast, or sometimes there's particular suburbs in the search terms, etc. His tip was to build a page on your website for each suburb, and then to enrich that over time. And I thought it's really interesting. So me being me, I went ahead and did that. So I've done the skeleton of that. I've done the draft, and it is starting to return some things. And I know I need to carry on working on it organically. But the point is that when someone does happen to search for your suburb that you're looking in, then you got to. It's done number one when you type in those suburbs, NDIS provider, blah. It's going bing straight to number one. But again, it's time will tell whether there's enough traffic for that. All of my blah 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 aside, what do you think of that particular strategy of like if you're in a broader region doing lots of sub pages for the individual
yeah.
suburbs?
There's two answers to that. Okay, so the first is well done because you took action. Okay,
Mm.
so guys, I'm hearing Chris say he went to one of his friends who is a search engine optimization guy who's not me, which is nice. And he went and found from him what's the one thing I need to do, and the guy has said go and do a suburb page for every service you offer. So for that, he's gone suburb plus
Yeah.
like whatever it was.
Yep.
Okay, which is perfect. Now you could do that, say, for the first 30 or 40 suburbs, and then beyond that, they're out of range of you. Great. Now that used to work really, really, really well.
Okay.
And now it works semi-well. So there's a website that I've done that for. Kicks butt. It's great. There's another website I've done that for that really isn't getting any traction at all.
Mhm.
And you've got to look at, well, what is the difference between those? So Chris, if you want those pages you've created to do well, firstly, each page needs to be more than 1,000 words.
Okay. Yep.
Secondly, yep, secondly, you need to have local things about that suburb. So what's the name
Correct.
of one of those suburbs, for
Well,
example,
Avoca
Chris?
Beach. So, for example, that I put stuff on there. That's a positive example for me, where I've put stuff about the markets that's once a month and what you can do and where to go and some recommended restaurants. Not massive amounts of info, but that's probably the most constructive example. There are other ones where I've just put the title of the suburb, 6 times across the page, and it's a bit cruder because I know I need to enrich that over time.
You can do that. Well, that's clever. And what you're talking about, actually getting things that are about Avoca Beach, and you need photos of the real
Yes,
Avoca Beach.
I did that.
Okay.
That was his other tip, by the way. He said get real photos. So I, like a crazy bastard, drove around the whole Central Coast with my iPhone, because you don't always have to do
That's
like the
right.
fancy stuff. Sometimes it feels more authentic when I get this thing out and go, you know.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Or even make it a selfie, you in the back, you
yeah,
and with the back beach behind you.
yeah.
So what you could do with that is you could say, these are things you could do with your support worker at Avoca Beach. And then you
Mm,
list off things that are really good. ChatGPT will give you most of that, but then you need to go and actually write it like a human,
you do.
because there's a war on right now between ChatGPT and the equivalents
Mm,
versus Google.
mm,
Google's going to lose. Google
mm.
knows that. Why do you think your Google ads cost so much? Okay, but there's a warrant. See, back a year ago, you would go and do a page about that particular and say seal in Avoca Beach.
Mm.
Whereas in 2025, I don't think it's going to work like that, because AI is getting smarter and smarter,
Yep.
and it knows when you're gaming the system. And if
Mm.
it can't work out that you having 60 pages about different suburbs is you gaming the system, then there's something wrong with it. So it'll get smarter, and then it won't punish you. It'll just ignore those over time. But what'll happen is, of those 60 pages, about 5 of them will be full of really good information and they'll rank really well. And it's like that saying, you got to kiss a lot of frogs before you find the prince. You keep doing it, because doing something is better than doing nothing. There was one of these websites that I run that uses the same thing that you're doing.
Okay.
We had to do 5,000 word articles, and then we really won the game.
Interesting.
Now, if you go back 5 years ago, no one could write 5,000 word articles. Now you can use Chat GPT or something, but then you have to edit it as a human. You
Mm.
can't just rely on it, because Google will punish you next year if you just rely on Chat GPT or equivalents.
Totally. And then even if you do things like that, the other tip I had was make it in each one of those pages, as well as real photos, real content about the suburb, speaking like a human, make it a nice user experience so that graphically it's not just a barrage of words. It must be something that flows in terms of when you arrive there for the first time.
That's really
Um,
true, because that's something else Google's calculating. It can't
oh,
measure everything. It can measure how long people spend on your site. So if
correct.
they come to Evoca Beach NDIS page and they spend 3 seconds and disappear, Google will just ignore it. But why don't you put a YouTube video of you talking about just SIL in general, or
Mm.
whatever your topic is in general, on that Evoca Beach page? You can put that same video on, say, 10 of your pages.
Yes.
Okay. And have something there that when someone turns up, they're like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. Or frequently asked questions
Mm.
about SIL. You
Mm-hmm.
might be putting that on 10 of your pages, but if
Mm-hmm.
they're on the Evoca Beach page, people are going to stay there. So it's about actually having something that's worth reading, because you can
Mm.
do that. And really, all website work is have something that's worth reading, have it interesting,
Mm.
and have it that when they come here, they leave smarter. If
Mm.
you do that, you win. And if you don't do that, you lose.
Talking about evolution of things. So, okay, we talked about how paid search has become, difficult and challenging and not always worth it. We've gone down the rabbit hole a bit with search engine optimization, which is, more than 90% is Google, right? Currently.
Mm.
However, the war. So let's go Terminator. So basically, even myself, I don't use Google as much anymore. I've got ChatGPT as the app on my mobile phone, and I'll speak to it or type into it and ask my exact question in the context. I'm not going to waste my time anymore opening up 5 different websites and wondering whether that particular article answers my question. I'm going to let the AI tool do that and summarize it for me. So I think that the clear trend is search through AI tools is going to be what's happening.
That's right. So you've probably got a year left of every man and their dog using Google. A year from now, who would like, I went to the doctor the other day. He used some medical terms I didn't understand. A year ago, I would have searched them, but I just asked ChatGPT and it gave me something so specific.
Mhm.
And a year from now, nobody except maybe your grandmother is going to be using Google. Okay. And even then, she'll be stuck on Bing because you know how Bing steals you away. But it's like nobody's going to be using that. And at that point, business like websites become nothing more than a business card. Unless someone actually knows it's there, it's useless. So the way things are going is if you're going to have a website, you need to be outstanding.
Mm,
Otherwise, you're going to be lost in the clutter. Like the Chat
mm,
GPT, etc., Copilot, blah, blah, blah. They're going to push you towards great sites. They're not going to push you towards good sites. And that's the difference between 2025 marketing and 2024 marketing. So when I do websites for people now,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
when I do
brilliant.
websites for people now, I am ashamed of myself if I'm not producing something amazing because I build now for what's coming next year, not for what is.
That's such a cutting edge distinction, and I go down to the questions and answers thing, and again, letting the AI tool answer that. If your content doesn't fix the problem, then there's no, and you haven't got it's not written, it's not demonstrated what the solution is. Then it's going to become useless.
Absolutely. It'll
Yeah, I
just,
think
again, it'll be the Mona Lisa in your backyard that no one sees.
again, the cliche new website, new provider build was, taking everything from the bloody price catalog and going, we do personal care activities, we do innovative community participation, we do capacity building. I'm like listing 15 things out. It doesn't work anymore. It's got to be the niche within the niche. Wow. Yeah, I definitely agree. So you need the result now, right? Because we have to make money now on the stuff we make investments in, but we need to know
Yep.
that's what's coming. Like there's definitely been a generational shift, for example, with people on Facebook. Like I don't personally use Facebook anymore, and I've noticed that there seems to be different demographic shifts. Maybe, um, you know, it's not. I don't want to make general statements. I'm not going to make general statements, but it's been a big shift.
There's been a
So
shift, and
yes,
because it wasted our time, it was the in rubbishification, if that's a word, of over time, these big companies just get worse and worse. So
mm,
what used to be an ad every, 30 posts is now an ad every 5 posts.
right.
None of us care. Okay. But if you come back to the question that you're asking under that question,
Mm,
if you're talking about personal care, how do you create a website, say Steadway, personal care, Central Coast? How do you do that and get value now, get value in the future? Well, don't just say we do personal care. If you want it to be 2025 ready, you need to outline the top 10 problems that can go wrong with a personal care provider. And then you need to outline if you're seeing any of these, here's what you put in place. And then
mm.
at the end of that, you're like, by the way, we do all this. And if you're having any trouble with your current company, get in touch with us. We'll tell you how to get the best from them. So it's not self-serving. It's not like come to us, we're better. It's like, hey, we'll help you if you need, but here's what to look for. Here's what to do about it. Do you think that Google is not going to show that off when someone writes, I freaking hate my personal care place? Like, what do I do? They're going to see very clearly you are offering value. And whoever goes to that page of your site is going to spend a minute or two there. Google knows that. It's going to show it to more people. And again, that's 2025 marketing. We can't just go, here's what you need to know about our personal care. It needs to be, here's what to look for. Here's what quality looks like. Here's what average looks like. And here's what drop your provider looks like. And if you do that, you win. And if you do that, you help people. That's win-win.
That fundamentally comes back down to my opening statement. I think about be proud about what you do operationally and how you're good, how you're better, because that then allows you to do what you just said. You can say, here are for example, when I again full transparency, whenever I would talk about my services as a marketer, I would say here are the top 7 pitfalls of the average NDIS provider. And sometimes just by calling out the pitfall, calling out the problem, what happens is that there's a term called self-identification. So you go, oh God, that's me. Oh God, that's me. Oh, I don't have that. It's the same principle for someone that's a client, right? If they can go, yeah, my provider doesn't turn up on time. Yeah, they're very inconsistent in their shift structure, or whatever the problems are you spell out. It's the same idea, right?
Yeah. And what you're saying is if you can put their problems into words, they
Yes,
will trust you.
yes,
And that's all you're doing. You're saying this is with those 7 things you were talking about.
yep.
Here's 7 problems. And people who
Mm-hmm.
read that go, man, that is my problem. And that's exactly the issue. And what is his thoughts around how I solve that?
Mm-hmm.
Because they then trust you because you put their problems into words that make sense.
Mm. So it's
I,
refreshing. Yeah, it's
it
literally
is.
it's refreshing because they go, oh, Yeah, we kind of called out the bullshit, or we called out the
And then
actual.
you wonder why
Yes.
they trust you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, are they going to, are they, so there's basically three levels of NDIS
Okay.
marketing. Okay.
Right.
One level is, hi, we exist. Another is, hi, we exist. Here's 5 reasons to choose us.
Yep.
And then the third one would be, hi, we exist. And here's how you find what you need. Whether you choose us or someone else, here's the factors to look for.
Mm.
If everyone listening to this was to go and get their website team to make that,
Hmm.
you win because no one else is doing it. Okay. Or if you don't have a website team, get in touch with someone like Chris or myself. We'll put you in touch with someone or we'll do it ourselves. It's
Mm.
like your website must be packed full of advice, not just on some pages, on
Mm.
every page. It's
Mm.
like the About Us page. You know, Chris, like, when was the last time you clicked on an About Us page?
I don't anymore. I don't. Okay, just a personal opinion. I feel like about us pages aren't relevant anymore.
They're not. So they
Mm.
should be turned into How We Help page. And then as
Yes.
soon as you go there, we do not want to see everyone from your director to your admin team. We don't
Yes.
care. We just
Yes.
want to know, what do you serve me or not? You know,
Yes.
it's and so your About Us page really should be about
Hmm.
who you help, what type of people you help.
Yes.
And again, it's like, let's live in 2025. So it's like, Chris, what scares me is this. Of all the people listening to this podcast, if they're in their first 18 months, I'll bet that 2/3 of them are not in business 2 years from now. And I'll say that because there's so much competition coming in and so
Hmm.
much less funding. The
Hmm.
1/3 who will still be there are the 1/3 who put effort and energy into their
Yes.
marketing. And we say marketing, we don't mean scare me, show the world how good you are. We mean creating helpful stuff and getting in the hands of the right people.
Yes.
And if you follow even a quarter of what Chris and I have talked about so far, you'll be able to do that.
Mhm.
But right now, everyone who's saying, "Oh, I just rely on word of mouth. I just rely on referrals from support coordinators." What on earth are you going to do when you don't have support coordinators and everyone else who used to be relying on support coordinators are also looking to do something different? How on earth do you make that shift? I think that we're walking into a disaster if we put our heads in the sand.
Totally agree. On the about page thing, I feel like your homepage should do that, and if it doesn't, then it's failed as a homepage almost.
That's right.
Yeah, it's one and the same thing.
It's
Um,
true. But even
yeah.
your homepage needs to be about what you do to help people. It needs to be not about you, it's about the ways you help. It's
Mm.
if they're not learning something, if then and if all your homepage does is scream, look at me,
Mm.
then you're lost. And the other disastrous thing, Chris, is most people's Facebook ads and YouTube ads, sorry, Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube ads, they all go to their homepage. But their
Yes.
homepage is terrible. And
Correct.
if we're going to worry about the about page and the homepage, what about your contact us page, Chris? Now,
Yes.
how many contact pages have you gone to? And there's a photo of, the lady from the Amy ad, some 22-year-old who's all dressed up with a phone system hanging over her head, and it says, call us. And you're like, one, she does not look dependable. Two, she's not my demographic. Most people who are making that phone call are 40-year-old support coordinators, and they look at her and they're like, look, she's probably kind and stuff, but she looks like my daughter. And and the contact us pages, people in NDIS world are used to sending an email to their LAC who never got back to them, an email to their other provider, a complaint that they never got back to. It's like you need to provide reassurance. So your contact us page is the most important page of your website. It needs to have reassurance at the top. Hey, we get this is important to you. We will be back to you within 24 hours. And if you
Yes.
can't say that, then you shouldn't be in business. And then you also need a photo of someone who matches the demographic of the people phoning. So you wouldn't put Chris on there, you wouldn't put Michael on there, you put Jenny there because Jenny's 40, she's in your office, and she's the same demographic as the support coordinator will be calling. And then the contact form on your contact page, I see this all the time. What's
Mm.
your name? What's your first name? What's your last name? What's your date of birth? What's your NDIS number? What's the PIN number for your fourth credit card? Why are you asking that? All you need is name,
Yes.
email,
Yes.
phone, message.
Totally agree.
Any more than that,
Yeah.
Chris, and I think I know why you agree, because any more than that, if you're filling out a mobile, how many like forms are you going to fill out that ask for 7 bits of information?
Here's the way I look at it. On my own website, I chose to do contact page versus refer now. Right. So the
Yep.
contact page is what you just said, nice and simple. And I like to call it the pre-game chat with a cause. And the pre-game chat is always this is what the person needs. This is where they are. Can you do it? And you need to be able to answer that usually via phone or email like that. They ain't telling you nothing else until you've passed that little gate, right? Only after that might you then go to a meet and greet, right? But again, I ain't telling you anything else until I've done that, maybe, right?
That's
And then
right.
so you're going to go further down the road, which is then when you're actually ready to write a service agreement. At that point, what I would call a referral form or an intake form or whatever, that's when my refer now page comes in. And that's the page that with the Zango, the system that I use, that collects enough information, but not anymore, just enough information to legally draw up a service agreement. And that's quite nuanced, by the way, because it's a
Yeah.
cool system that can tell whether someone's the plan nominee or not. Is there a plan manager or not? You know, who are you? Are you the client? Are you the person referring? And all of that stuff gets put into the database that is Ango in my example, right? And it's very powerful because then they're properly logged in the system, and therefore I can do 2 clicks of a button, and Bob the Builder has now got a service agreement because it's already been fully referred. But it's still not the world. It's not your credit card and your PIN code and too much information, so to speak, right? So that's my distinction there. I think some people still, you never know, they might, it's rarer, but they might want to just give you the full thing because they're busy and they haven't got time and they already trust you or whatever. So having a refer now page can work, but I think the contact page is always the first port of entry.
Yeah, because what you're talking about is if you're asking for all that info, it's like asking someone to marry you and they're like, I just met you.
Buy me a
Can we
drink
slow
first.
down?
Yeah.
That's right. Like, can we slow down?
Yeah.
And plus it's hard for them to fill in a form of 20 fields in a
Yes.
form if they don't trust that you're actually going to respond to them. Why would you spend
Yes.
20 minutes filling that out? But the thing is, you know your stuff and you found a way to make it smooth and easy for them to onboard.
Mm.
And and it's like where people are struggling is that they have a contact page that looks impersonal.
Mm.
And it's those things of just, would you rather reach out to some faceless corporation or do you want to reach out to Jenny? I want to reach out to Jenny. Put Jenny on your contact us page. I think, Chris, the more we think about this, the more we think, look, there's a crisis of confidence coming where people are going to, like, if the current trends that we've seen the last 3 to 6 months continue, there's going to be a lot more providers because they put their registration in a year and a half ago and they're just getting their stuff now. There's going to be a lot less participants, and the less participants are going to have a lot less funding. So what that says is we got a problem. And then you get a vacuum cleaner and suck out all the support coordinators, and we got a bigger problem. So what we need to do is we need to go, right, how are we going to survive the cliff that's coming?
Mm.
What is our plan? And if you don't have an answer for that, then we've got a problem. It's time to
Mm.
get some answers for that, because what we don't want to see is heaps and heaps of our new providers falling off the cliff because they didn't have the funding to throw at expensive, not quite worth the money Facebook ads and Google ads. And the
Mm.
time to beat that is right now. Do
Mm.
exactly what you're doing. Mess around with your website, mess around with going, how much quality information can I jam in? This is
Mm.
not something to pass off to the person who's, assistant to your third manager. This is something to either do wholeheartedly yourself or pay the big bucks for someone else to do it, or the medium bucks for someone who's at least partially experienced to do it. Because we used to be able to just produce rubbish and it worked in
Mm.
life. That's not how it works in 2024, and it's certainly not how it'll work in 2025. So I
Mm.
think we don't want to be alarmist because that's not how we win the game ever. But we do need to be aware that everything that we think is currently true, we're seeing it's not working and it's only going to get harder, which means we need to adapt and get better now.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah, laser targeted now, get your returns now, build for the future in parallel with the activities
Yep.
that you're choosing. Love it. This very, very, very insightful. And look, just before we wrap this up, I'd love to also throw one final little tip into the mix that I found worked well in my own business. Putting support worker profiles on your business, that personalizes things too. Like I've got pictures of full transparency. I need to update a couple because we've had some people come on the last month, but put the pictures of your actual workers on your website, and that feels real. That feels like, oh, I like the look of, name the person. I know what the hobbies and interests are, where they service area wise, and what the qualifications are. That's a nice way to make it real. That's way better than your board of directors. People don't care. They care about who are they going to actually work with. Oh, they look nice. That's really
It's
important in this industry.
remarkable. Yeah. What you're saying there is so insightful. Guys, if you only caught one thing, it's what he just said. No one cares about your three directors. Put the person who's going to answer the phone, put the person who's on the ground. It's like what the bigger thing underneath what you're saying, like the foundation of that is,
Mm.
don't use stock photos. So when I
100%.
say, yeah,
Yes.
when I say stock photos, I mean, the photos people get off Pixabay or whatever, they're free photos. You can go to all, I see photos on NDIS websites. I know whether it came from Pixels or
Me
Pixabay.
too. Me too. It's a
And it's
cliche.
embarrassing for
It's a
them. It's
cliche
embarrassing
now.
for me.
Yes.
That's right. And I keep seeing this with new providers. They'll pay, say, 2 grand for a really rubbish website made by someone who has no idea. It's full of stock photos. It's full of generic ChatGPT produced dribble.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, why didn't you just use real photos? Oh, I didn't want to put myself on a website. Oh, I didn't want to ask Jenny to put her on the website. It's like people are going to your website to connect with real people. If you try and look like McDonald's or Coca-Cola and put models there or fake people, here's a question. How many wheelchairs per website on average on an NDIS website?
I know
It's
that's a cliche.
insane.
It's a cliche.
And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's like how many is there really 20% of NDIS's wheelchairs? No. Well, why are
Mm,
20% of your photos people in wheelchairs?
mm,
It's just embarrassing for you. And
yeah.
it's like make your photos real. If you're going to do a page about, Central Coast, Steadway, whatever, have photos of the Central Coast. If you're going to do a
Mm,
page about support workers, have some of your support workers, like you're saying, make them real. Why would you not have video? Now, no one's going to watch the video of your support workers talking. No one. But the fact that you've got video on means they know you're authentic. And if you just did that one thing, you stand out above 60% of rubbish NDIS websites. All you
mm,
have to do is have real photos. Man, how many tips will get you into the top, 40%, that one thing. But Chris, you're talking about being real with people. And instead of trying to look better than you are, just be who you are because
mm,
the small players have such an advantage, but they throw it away when they try to look bigger than they are. Just be real. Hey, there's 4 of us. Hey, here's what we do. Like, who would not want someone being real? Hey,
mm,
here's my personal phone number. It's on the website. Give me a call.
mm,
Like you
mm,
got an advantage. Don't throw it away. Don't,
mm.
especially not to stock photos and genericization.
Love it. Love it. Well, listen, look, we're on the hour mark, so I'm gonna wrap it up because I like to kind of keep them in the bounds of that. But yeah, look, Michael, it's where can people find out about the work that you do? Because the company name is Athletic Koala. So what's the kind of go on that?
Yeah, well, the pretty much my big tip to people would be don't use an agency. Don't use a big thing full of interns who know nothing and are trying to prove themselves. Like I'll work with a team of 4. That's it. We're not trying to be something we're not. Find something about that size so that you've got big enough that you're not just one man show, but small enough that they actually care. If people want to get more of my tips, they could go to athletickoala.com.au. There is so much free stuff there. It's silly. And if there's anything that's not covered on that, send me an email through it, and I'll answer your question. Because again, that's what you get with a small player. But it's like my best advice to people would be whatever you're currently doing, question why are we doing this? Whose word did we take? And who can we go and suss this out with to see if it's still going to work? Because 80% of people who get in touch with me are hurting themselves and they're the proactive ones. So
Mm-hmm.
it makes me worry about others. So if I can be helpful to people, go for it. athletickoala.com.au.
Fantastic. Well, look, Michael Clark, it's been an absolute pleasure having a chat with you. It's really good to, yeah, get those insights and know the road ahead. So thank you for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to next time.
Good on you, everyone. And my name is Chris Hall. Tune in for the next episode. Subscribe, like, share, all of that fun stuff. And I'll catch you soon. All the best. Bye.